All right, so cover this up. Michael Hoyes here with Mr. Rennie. I'm just asking questions about some of the classes I observed, particularly second period.
Okay.
That's the one I observed and took notes on. So what are the cultural backgrounds of the students in that classroom?
Hispanic, African American. We have black and white kids. We've got some Asian students. In that particular class, I feel like I have one student that's Asian, and that pretty much covers the gamut.
I noticed some students in the back might have been like North African, maybe Middle Eastern with their jobs.
Yes, I think I have a student from Senegal,
Senegal, okay.
if I'm not mistaken. Elizabeth is her name, but I can't remember. She's from Africa.
Okay.
But
Okay, that's what's up. Let's see. So, what evidences do you see to demonstrate an example of culturally responsive learning community? So, how do you demonstrate like that you have a culturally responsive approach to teaching your class?
through communication. Today we had the boards out, and by the boards, they're kind of whiteboard surfaces so they could write. So the first level of recognition is if I ask them to write something or if I ask a question, if they can't respond orally, which today they didn't have to for a lot of the prompts that I gave them verbally, but they would be able to write their answer. I'd be able to see the things that they put on paper. So very quickly I can walk by their desk and recognize what they're writing and the level of understanding. So today's lesson is made it very easy to recognize their level of understanding, and kind of took some of the barriers that might exist through, doing regular word problems or doing things that require them to read and comprehend where I wouldn't be able to fully access their level of understanding.
I noticed you use these erasable long paper. These white books. What's the rationale for that?
Exactly what you goes back to that first question. It allows me to quickly assess what the students understand and know. It allows me to chunk the information.
Right.
So today, their ability to draw the graphs and talk about end behavior. There's a lot of short conversations you can have to assess their understanding, but connecting the idea that they're going to write and say and do kind of brings it all full circle. So as I walk around, I'm looking to see, who's hesitating, who's pausing, who needs assistance from their neighbor, and what kind of structure they write with. Their structure that they use to write, speaking about cultural backgrounds, even from whether you put your solutions from top to bottom or left and right. Sometimes I can access, how they're thinking and what order they're putting their steps in as they start to solve problems.
Okay. I also noticed that you put in some one was a general colloquialism about like how you doing? What's everything on the up and up? And then you had the pop culture reference, where started from the bottom, now we here, in reference to both of those referencing to how polynomial end behavior would appear. Going from starting from the bottom right here with the negative degree situations versus the not negative, but odd degree versus even degrees. What made you think about doing that?
I'm a big fan of appealing to the student senses. So if I can get them to smell, taste, touch, see the information, it'll stay with them longer. So the kinetic energy that I put into the pointing, the started from the bottom, now you hear, all those things that they would hear and associate with a math class or that particular lesson, I'm willing to pull in as long as it's appropriate. So cross-curriculum is a really big deal for me. So using the synonyms and asking them to intercept their nose, drawing connections that, mean more to them than me, because I generally find out where I use the description with the kids that if I call somebody's name and you don't have a picture in your head, then you don't know that person. So now my job is to give them pictures for all the information that I see, and I need to cut out the delay between them understanding what x-intercept is versus the person that right away knows, oh, that's this. So that's what all of that is about, just trying to redefine how they think about things and get it out of the books and into their heads so that they can use it in ordinary language.
Right. I actually like the red cup analogy expectation, observation, and then inspection, as it relates to looking at graphs and determining what the zeros and rows should be. That's real neat to see them kind of connect those particular ideas to how they actually should approach looking at their graph as well to determine the zeros and what things should look like and what it's telling you from that representation. So I think that's really dope, that situation there, because I'm pretty sure they've all seen that game, whether in movies or probably not in real life, because they don't go out like that, but they're kids. But they've seen that from a gambling perspective, the idea about the cards and watch the queen, this, that, the third, red cup, this, that, watch the red. So that's pretty nice. How do you try to build rapport with your students during class?
Successes. During the beginning of the year, it was a lot of good job. Typically, my motto is if you ask the student to stand up or to point to their right, very seldom when you have a student that does not want to or says, I can't do it or I refuse to do it. So part of the trust becomes as I walk them into the dark, which is math, and they take one foot and put it in front of the other, I just continue to give them, commend them on their successes. Good job. So we start simple and we develop from the idea or that simple foundation going forward. And then everything else kind of falls in line. I don't really have to come in and do a lot of team building exercises or, get to know, you got to know where you come from. There are enough similarities in the math and the connecting of the math for kids to enjoy it. So even though those things take place, I don't typically come into a class period and saying my job is to connect. We automatically connect through the languages that we use and the understanding of, like today, you could have came from Mars and you would have had a reason to look at some portion of the class and be like, what is this dude doing? Right. Oh, I understand that. So their connections come from their understanding of and linking the math to things that they experience.
Okay, that's what's up. I noticed they had a lot of fun, especially with that trying to hit the little dance moves to show.
Oh, I wanted to give it to you. I wanted to give it to you.
To show how the function works.
I was going to hit with some rerun, but I ain't do it.
Yeah. The nice thing I noticed was it seemed like there was concerted effort to build language with the students, utilizing the language they used to, like left, right, up, down, building into positive, negative, infinity, and even the idea of approaching, or symbolic representing left, right, up, and down with X and Y. Is that like a constant concerted effort to do those kind of things?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you noticed it. I start a lot of lessons with the idea that here I'm called Mr. Rennie. In the gym, I'm called Coach Rennie, and at home, my mom calls me Day Day. Now that's not true, but the kids get the point. And I sometimes say, well, if you hear one name and you're not in that environment, a lot of times we don't know what it is, and therefore we get stuck. So I do a whole host of things to try to get them to adopt the language with me, so that if I point at a line and I want them to call it, the x-intercept, and I want them to, or I want to call a root solution, try to have a working vocabulary that allows them to, again, feel comfortable saying, oh, I know what that is, or is that the same thing as? And once they open the box of, okay, I know what this is, then it's less about the math and more about the communication of the math. So to me, it's a big deal trying to get them to have an open math language. So we really create our own language in each class period that has nothing to do with vocabulary, but it has everything to do with vocabulary. So synonyms are just ring true in their understanding of what they can link the linkage tools to the math.
All right. Within the Black culture, we use a lot of call and response, and I noticed that you use a lot of call and response in your classes, where you don't really do a lot of direct calling on individuals. It's more of the students should recognize when it is for them to repeat. Also, repetition. Use a lot of like repeat after me, which we do that oral tradition, and it comes from the church a lot. So like repeat this phrase. You're supposed to say this when it happens. I guess the question, because that wasn't the question that might come in is like, how intentional is that you're kind of expressing what's typically related, thought of as Black culture reference into your classroom? Like, how intentional are we making that, or is it just like I'm just being me?
It's very intentional, but it's very me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Being a coach, the first level of understanding is, you know, getting their attention. Hey, why are you not where you're supposed to be?
Mm-hmm.
And I try to use, on the basketball court, it might be considered a shock value, but in here, it's just my way of alerting you to the instruction that's about to happen. So that oral piece, number one, is not intimidating. So if I can start a lesson on addition with signs just saying you do what, you know, those things give the kids access so that they're not intimidated, and their ability to speak will lead to their ability to do. If you come into a room and you just put papers in front of students that have little or very little recognition of maybe a topic they did last year, the year before, what you get is a lot of silence.
Mm-hmm.
But if you bring that same information in and you start throwing out ideas that the kids are familiar with, they're a lot more likely to speak to you as a group and recognize and interact than they are to do that if you just give them papers and say, hey, work with your part.
Mm-hmm.
I don't notice.
I think even with that, there was this thing where, a lot of times in Western education, there's a lot of independence and doing things by yourself. Whereas, here, they're in groups. They're told explicitly work with each other, ask each other, look at each other's paper. What's the rationale for that? Like, how we get to that? That's not the way we probably would have been in school at all.
No,
Been in
you're right
rows
about
and
that.
whatnot. You still by yourself every day.
Well, I will say I spend a lot of time out of groups.
Mm-hmm.
Spend a lot of time in it. When I am in groups, the idea that they can look at each other's paper. I remember distinctly being in school, and when a teacher might ask me to do my multiplication tables, I can remember times with my mom being a teacher walking into teacher A's class, and they wrote out the tables 1 times 2 with the little X that we don't use anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go to other classes and they had charts, and I liked charts. So I thought, well, wish I could do it like that. But what that gave me was the idea that, sometimes a change of perspective or a fresh idea in terms of, hey, how can this be displayed, can change a kid's approach to math.
Mm-hmm.
So the same way that we look at an equation and we say, all right, he solved that wrong, because we see +3 on one side and +4 on the other. That's an automatic indicator that something is wrong, or something is awry. You know what I'm saying? You really just start to lock in on things. So sentences without periods, words without punctuation in certain areas. You don't have to read certain things; you can recognize it. So once they start to view each other's work, their recognition level of what they're seeing and the expectation of what it should look like goes up.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I've seen multiple occurrences of people doing multiplication tables, multiple occurrences of multiplicity, and I'm saying, hey, I can start to visually make some comparisons and compare and contrast certain things that, I wouldn't be able to compare and contrast just by looking at only Mr. Rennie's work on the board.
Right.
So it gives them flexibility, lets them know that just because theirs doesn't look like mine, I tell them all the time I have terrible handwriting, but I have good ideas. And when they adopt that, and it's like, well, it's right, isn't it? And I'm just like, yeah, as long as it's right and you know what approach you're using, you're good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. With the groups, like, did you pick the groups that they sit in? They kind of chose how they sit on their own.
Usually based on their ability to communicate, yes, I will switch them around.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a firm belief that if kids can learn in their own kid-friendly environments with their friends, the likelihood that they take it home and talk about it increases. So I prefer to let them sit with who they want to sit with, and then 1 or 2 adjustments according to who communicates well.
Mm-hmm. How do you learn about the students, like who they are as people?
Through the math.
The math.
The first level of getting to know them is probably more about what entertains them,
Mm.
what gets their attention, what keeps them. So today, I had two classes that I gave the same lesson, and in my second class, the energy level fell. And sometimes it's the teacher, of course,
Mm.
but sometimes it's the kid's attention span. So that attention span kind of dictates how I need to keep their attention and what things I need to do. So later on today, I'll have another class that is a different level. It's a little lower level in terms of academically, and we take a totally different approach,
Mm.
but it's the same information. But their attention spans are shorter. Therefore, the way we interact becomes more gregarious, and it's more walking to the back of the classroom. Um, they might experience less problems or more repetition, but that is the first layer. And then after that, the kids typically tend to want to share things about themselves because they feel like they're in a safe, carefree environment, and it's kind of organic.
Okay. um, we know about like the culture of the community in which the school sits.
We got a transient population. We have lots of apartments.
Mm.
Probably in the last, I've been here for 6 years. Last 3 years have been more apartments coming up around the area than ever.
Yeah, they building some down the street.
Yeah.
There's some more here.
They coming. And what I've seen in the student population is, number one, we're very diverse. We also have a newcomer school
Mm-hmm.
that we share a parking lot with. But whereas, 15, 20 years ago, you had a lot of neighborhood kids, and they would come and you knew their parents lived down the street. Their parents might have went to Western. They were going to be in the area, so they were going to know their neighbors. They come from neighborhoods that they're knowledgeable about. We have a lot of kids that just move into the area, and you don't have, boys clubs. We don't have a lot of YMCA's in the immediate area.
Mm.
So a lot of these kids come, they're here for a year, and then they're gone. Get a lot of students that don't have a background that suggests that they've been in one location, even if it's just popping around from one part of the city to the next. They don't have, a large percentage of the kids don't know what it feels like to have parents that own a home. A lot of single parents. So the culture is diverse, from the ethnicities of the students to the living experiences. In the class you just watched, I have 2 kids on the top of my head that live with an aunt or a sibling.
Mm.
So you never know what you're getting yourself into, and that's probably another reason why I don't dive straight into the kids' backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the kids are not really open with sharing the fact that, hey, I don't know my mom, or I don't stay with parents.
Mm.
So sometimes that can cause, kids to react adversely to being in an environment where they're going to be questioned about things that they're not proud of.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Do you get a chance to kind of bring the? Let me go back. I actually want to go back to the transient part. Do you feel like it is a responsibility almost to, not like projecting, give students a sense of stability whilst in your classroom, since there's so many that are just kind of on the move so much?
absolutely. One of the things that is different about, like I said, the transient population, because I know there are high numbers of single parents in there. There's a high number of people that are, like I said, are moving. We're talking about working class people that are working jobs. So a lot of these kids go home to themselves.
Mm.
And as a result, obviously the harder that your parents work, the more stress is on them to get things done. If they're dealing with pressure of bills and, just life today with wages and everything else. A call home might mean a little bit more to some students than it does to others.
Mm-hmm.
I often remember working at other schools and recognizing that students that went home to nobody, if they got a call and that parent got there and it's like, hey, why is this teacher calling me? I used to get that response from kids saying, hey, please don't call home because if I call, but, excuse me. Mr. Renton. But ultimately, it's I do feel like it's my job to provide stable. Mr. Renton. Hey, what's up? Yeah, it has to be safe here because, I mean, on the whole, as a teacher, you spend so much of the day with the kids. I mean, you know, it's easy to say, well, I'm only 1/6 of that 7-8 hour slice they spend here. But by the time you consider the fact that they're here this long and all the people that they should consider as their safe place, parents, providers, guardians, they don't see those people. So, if nothing else, they ought to feel like they can come to school and not feel attacked. They should not feel like they gotta go the other way when a teacher comes. So when they get here, I want them to feel like they're in some kind of extended family, and I need them to know that I care about them, but I also have expectations. And as a result, I usually don't have a lot of write-ups. You know, I want to talk to kids head on and ask them to meet the bar. I want to provide the expectation face to face. I want to talk to them. I want to get to know why they can't meet the expectation, and we have procedures in place that allow them to express that, hey, today is not a good day. And if they're willing to do that for me, you know, their social growth can lead to academic growth.
Right.
And that student may not be the best behaved kid, but if they're socially mature and have that growth or able to grow, then I can use that just as well as anything else to get them to be a better student.
Okay. I think that's all I'm going to go ahead and ask about as relates to cultural references and things of that nature. Unless you got anything you want to add.
No, I'm good, man. I'm just glad to have you.
Oh yeah,
Appreciate you coming check me out.
Oh yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. I like it. I'm gonna steal some of the stuff you did.
You might get.
I'm gonna steal some of it.